Meeting to order. We will resume in public. We had two people on the speaking list, so Ms. Lalonde and then Mr. Dhaliwal, and then we will come to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Lalonde.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe as we were having a conversation, we were talking about the motion that we are to study as early as possible. And I think there's been lots of efforts on the part of the clerk in trying to reach out to the minister. And I know one of our minister has agreed. But maybe the clerk could clarify with this committee, and Madam Clerk, Madam Chair, through you, maybe we can ask, have the invites to ministers been for specific dates or for a range? And my second question would be, if they were to have the officials come for 1 hour next week in order not to lose our scheduled time, because then if no one's available on that specific day, our member in this committee who wants to work just wants to have it cancel. But would it? And my question would be, if the officials next week, in order not to lose any scheduled time, would it be the plan to have officials come back for a second hour when the ministers appear? And then if then ministers do in the end decline the invitation, the officials will come back for that second hour anyway. So I'll give you an example, Madam Chair, through you. For example, was the Minister of Justice giving, and that's particularly relevant to my first questions, giving 1 day, and then the next meeting date was offered to GAC, etc., or were each ministers offered one of the 4 dates? I think it will be important to clarify for our members. Merci.
Okay, I'll ask the clerk to please clarify that, if the ministers were given a range or they were just given some specific dates.
Thank you. The way normally invitations are issued is per day, and then upon a decline by a deadline, an alternate date is provided.
Okay, just to clarify, like to the members before we go further, I have people on the speaking list. The schedule of the committees came like just about, I think, 10 or 12 days before we resume. So the clerk can only start working with the booking of with the ministers only once we know like which days of the week we are meeting. So because the calendar was not very clear, like whether it will be Tuesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, which days. So when the calendar of the committees came, after that, the clerk started going into. So I have a speaking list, Mr. Dhaliwal, then Ms. Kwan, Mr. Kimmich, and then Mr. Reddycock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Carrying on with what Mary France earlier said about the dates. Were those dates that were given to the ministers were specific dates, or it was given a wide range of dates? So that is very, very important, because I don't think clerk has clearly indicated, even though she has said that one date was given and then the alternate date. So that is what I would like to clear it up. Now, secondly, as you said, Madam Chair, this committee, the business, the number of days, the days we can work came out recently. So I just want to know, because previously, I have seen the minister has appeared here on a very, very short notice as well, and this is the first time I'm hearing on this committee that the ministers are not coming and they are trying to avoid. I don't think that is the case, because the ministers has always been accessible to this committee, and I have seen sometime in a month Minister of Immigration has appeared 3 times. So hopefully we will start working, and all the ministers will be given ample opportunity to appear on different dates that are flexible and enough notice.
Thank you, Mr. Dhaliwal. The clerk sent out the invite for February 6th to GAC, February 13th for Justice, February 15th for D&D. These were the dates which they were given. So they have declined. So once like a minister declines, then only the clerk can give them the second date and start working on that. So the Minister for IRCC has accepted February 8th. So, but the other three ministers are not available on these dates, February 6th, February 13th, and February 15th.
It's very clear, Madam Chair, from your deliberation that the ministers were not given open dates. They were given specific dates, and certainly, and a notice less than probably 2 weeks. So it's very reasonable that we should give ministers an open, like all those meetings, to give it to all the ministers and see which minister can fit into their schedule instead of just going to one and then them rejecting. And we would not have this issue here in this committee if we would have handled it that way. And I think we should certainly give ministers, leeway to put this into their schedule. And I'm certain that ministers will be very happy to appear.
Mr. Dhaliwal, we will try to work, but at times we have to give them specific days in order to get some answer. I have a speaking list. Next is Ms. Kwan.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. So just to be clear, this motion passed by the committee on October the 7th. Since that time, the committees had had 12 meetings. And one would assume that since the motion had passed, that we would be inviting these ministers to come to the committee. And what are we talking about? We're talking about Afghanistan, the report that was done by the Special Committee on Afghanistan. We're talking about the 37 recommendations that committee had made to the government and their response to it. Meanwhile, we have Afghans who are being hunted down by the Taliban, whose lives are in grave danger, for the simple reason because they helped Canada with our missions. Meanwhile, we have third countries such as Pakistan, who is issued an enforcement for people who are there without a visa or expiring visa, that they would be jailed or sent back to Afghanistan. And I have information that's been provided to me that the police in Pakistan has raided a hotel where they generally know that some of the Afghans been staying there, waiting for their processing of their application to get to safety. So the situation is very real. Some people have already lost their lives, by the way. Some of the family members have not had any contact with what's happening with these individuals. So we're talking about a gravely serious and urgent situation. The committee passed the motion to ask for 4 ministers, the Minister of National Defense, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Ministers of Justice and Attorney General, and of course Immigration, to come before the committee for 2 hours each. That includes officials. And so far, we have had none. The only minister who's responded with a positive response is the Minister of Immigration, whom had offered to come before the committee, happens to be at the time when we needed to do supplementary estimates as well. And we needed to get that dealt with in time. So therefore, we defer that time. So I'll give credit and recognition to the Minister of Immigration. But where the heck are the other ministers? Why can't they make their schedule available? How many meetings do we need to offer them? I get it that in this new session, we have now offered them 4 meetings, 6th, 8th, 13th, and the 15th. Not one of them are available, with the exception of the Minister of Immigration. I thought that the Afghan file is a government of a whole operation. The recommendations involve all of these ministers. The Afghan committee no longer exists. So this is the only place where we can engage in this dialogue to see where the government is at and see what's happening and what other action needs to be taken to bring people to safety. We owe these individuals this much. So I don't accept this idea that the ministers are not available. They're busy people. Well, we're all busy people. But let me say this, most urgently, the people whose lives that are being hunted down, they are people who are waiting. And what are they busy with? Trying not to get killed. So let's get on with it. I don't accept it. I want to know from the clerk, Madam Chair, through you, How many times have we invited each of those ministers to come before the committee before the holiday break since October 7th when the motion was passed? How many times have they rejected or said that they're too busy, that they can't come? What do we need to do to make sure that they come?
In regards to your question, for December, the ministers were contacted to come on December 2nd, 6th, and 9th. 3 dates were given to them for December 2nd to the Defense, D&D, December 6th to GAC, and December 9th to Justice. They were not available, and then they were given this February 6th, 13th, and 15th. So this is these are the dates which were given. But just to clarify again, I've said it earlier also, that we could only start working on these January, February dates once we knew when the committee will be sitting. So we were not able to start immediately after the new year, start working on the dates available because we had no idea which day the committee will be sitting. Next, going on to the speaking list is Mr. Kimmich.
Yeah, it's not often I do this, but I'm going to agree with my New Democratic colleague. I know that's a shocker, but I was going to say many of the same things because the member's absolutely right. It's hard for me to believe that this motion was passed October 7th. There's been many opportunities. The ministers have exempt staffers and have directors of parliamentary affairs who literally know when the schedules of committees are. Yeah. It is not as if it's a surprise that we meet between 3:30 and 5:30 or meet between 11 and 1. There are set times in a week when that happens, and they've been offered many opportunities to appear. The immigration minister, to his credit, appears here at this committee when it's requested. But on this particular file, Ms. Kwan said, this is and was supposedly an all-of-government approach, and because there is a foreign affairs component to it, global affairs minister should be here. There is a component for many other departments, and there's ministerial accountability and responsibility attached to it. In the calendar, when you go through it, there are only 4 free days. And I noticed that main estimates is not in here. Subsidies are not in here, where we should dedicate time for the Minister of Immigration to return to the committee and explain the spending both for the end of the last fiscal year and for the upcoming fiscal year as well. That doesn't leave a lot of extra opportunities for other ministers to come in with their officials to explain themselves. And if the ministers haven't been willing to provide their time to appear before this committee, because usually in my experience here on Parliament Hill, committees request the appearance of a minister. Most ministers feel that they have an accountability to play to any parliamentary committee. They can be summoned as well. And if they have to be summoned, they should be summoned by the committee to appear. We're asking for accountability. We haven't reached the target of 40,000 Afghans brought to the country yet. I have emails in my inbox from people all over both Pakistan, people in Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, who have fled the Taliban, who are hiding, and who have made applications to IRCC that are not being processed. Some of them either worked directly for the Canadian government, or they worked for a third-party organization that was partially funded by the Canadian government in Afghanistan. And it's incumbent upon us. These ministers have an accountability that has to be rendered both by the parliamentary committee reviewing the department, but also other parliamentary committees. We're not lesser parliamentarians because we're not directly involved in the day-to-day policy issues that they have. So if they're refusing to appear or they're making it extra difficult, this committee doesn't have that many extra days to consider it. We have 4, according to what the calendar is here, 4 free days. And we have other motions to consider. We have, like I said, estimates and sub-Cs. And if they're refusing to, then this committee should consider simply summoning the ministers one by one to appear before the committee when it's convenient for us. Thank you.
We'll go to Mr. Redikoff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On this issue of accountability, I also want to put in my 2 cents on this. I think we have an issue, as has been stated, with the Afghanistan situation where we had people that worked for us, and we all know the situation, and has been said today, of people who are literally worried for their lives and working to save their lives while we're, frankly wasting time here with this. The ministers have the responsibility to show up to talk to us. They've been given that opportunity, and I just want to make sure that they understand that they need to come here, and if not, we will work to summon them. I believe that, as has been said, this has been going on since October, so there's been lots of opportunities. I think a few constructive things I would say. I think we should offer them whatever date they want. We'll be happy to rearrange our schedule around them if that's what it takes. If that's the only way we can get the ministers here, then, you know, tell us what you can do, and we will accommodate you if you can't accommodate us. The other thing I would say is that on this issue of officials, I believe the motion said the minister and officials together, so that would mean 2 hours of both. So I don't think there's any point in having, you know, 1 hour of officials, you know, because we want both at the same time. So I think if we had the officials for 1 hour, that's just a waste of time in my mind, because we still have to get them back for 2 hours anyway, and we don't have a lot of extra slack in the schedule. So I would say if we can't have the minister and officials together, then we can't meet on the subject. But as I said, we definitely need the Minister of Defense, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Justice. These are the three that have not responded to us. Those are the ones that we need to respond and to actually come to the committee. And Madam Chair, while I have the floor, I would just like to move a motion. And it's the motion that I submitted to the committee on Friday. And I don't know if you want me to read it or if we
Yeah,
can.
I would like you to read it.
Okay.
On a point of order,
Yes, Ms. Kwan.
if I may, I just wonder if we can finish this business and then get to the next, just for consistency and cohesion purposes. We're just about done, I think, here, to give
Okay.
direction as to what to do on this, on the Afghan piece.
Thank you, Ms.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Mr. Reddycop has the floor, so if he wants to move the motion and that, we will have to go there.
Okay, we'll try to do this quickly. So I can read it. That pursuant to Standing Orders 108(1)(a) and 2, the committee order A, the Department of Citizenship and Immigration to provide the clerk of the committee in both official languages and within 3 weeks of the adoption of this order, notwithstanding any non-disclosure agreements which might be applicable with respect to each contract entered into with McKinsey and Company since January 1st, 2011. Do I need to continue reading this, or?
Yeah, if you can please, so that we know.
Okay. Request for tenders and other procurement requests related to each contract. 2, tenders, bids, proposals, or other applications received in respect of those procurement requests. 3, contracts entered into, including any amendments thereto. 4, all correspondence and electronic communications, including emails, text messages, message app communications, and handwritten notes pertaining to these contracts. 5, statements of work performed by McKinsey and Company under each contract. 6, all work product provided by McKinsey and Company under each contract. 7, invoices provided by McKinsey and Company. 8, records of all payments made to McKinsey and Company. 9, the hourly and or daily rates McKinsey and Company charged for each employee working under each contract. And 10, the names of project managers and or project authorities from McKinsey and Company in relation to each contract, provided that these documents shall be circulated to the members of the committee forthwith upon receipt. And B, McKinsey and Company to provide to the clerk of the committee within 3 weeks of the adoption of this order, and notwithstanding any non-disclosure agreements which might be applicable with respect to each contract entered into with the Department of Citizenship and Immigration and the Immigration and Refugee Board of Canada since January 1st, 2011, copies of 1, all records referred to in paragraph A. 2, all records concerning the details and descriptions of work performed under each contract. 3, timesheets documenting work done under each contract. 4, the hourly and or daily rates McKinsey and Company charged for work performed under each contract. 5, the names of project managers and or project authorities from McKinsey and Company in relation to each contract. 6, all records concerning subcontracts issued by McKinsey and Company in relation to each contract, including tenders, contracts, or memoranda of understanding, including any amendments thereto, invoices, payments, and evaluations. 7, all correspondence and electronic communications, including emails, text messages, message app communications, and handwritten notes pertaining to these contracts. And 8, the complete client list of all organizations McKinsey and Company has worked with since January 1st, 2011, provided that these documents shall be circulated to the members of the committee forthwith upon receipt and translation into both official languages. And that the committee report that the foregoing to the House forthwith with the recommendation that it concur in and adopt the same, provided that C, references to clerk of the committee be read as Speaker of the House, and D, references to circulated to the members of the committee be read as laid upon the table of the House and stand referred to the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. This is a very critical thing, as we all know about the McKinsey situation with this government that has given tens of millions of dollars, maybe $100 million, maybe more. We heard in In question period today, the Prime Minister refused to answer that question, how much was actually given. We know that there's been a significantly large contract given out to the Immigration and Refugees IRCC department, and that's specifically what we are after here, to look into those and be able to have that information. And so I think it's critical that we're able to do that here and that we get this information, and that's the reason why I want this motion to be adopted by our committee. So
Mr. Redekop has moved a motion. I just need to suspend to get some advice from the clerk. So the meeting is suspended for a few minutes. So Mr. Reddycop has moved a motion. We are on that motion. Ms. Rempel Garner.
Chair, it's my understanding upon conferring with yourself and the clerk that in order to make this very important motion fly, that for it to be technically correct, that there needs to be a small amendment, which I will move. So I move to amend the motion to delete the words, the entirety of the motion read after the word "and" in section 8B. So that would be to strike the following words from the motion: that the committee report the foregoing to the House forthwith, and a recommendation that it concur in and adopt the same, provided that the references to the clerk of the committee be read as the Speaker of the House, and D, references to circulated to the members of the committee be read as laid upon the table of the House, and stand referred to the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. It's my understanding that this amendment is necessary, but I will speak. I will continue to speak to the amendment. What the amendment functionally does is ensure that the production of these documents are made to this committee, and I would like to talk to my colleagues about why it's so important for these documents to be produced to this committee. This, and my colleague, I believe, is going to speak to this as well. These documents came to light, and these contracts came to light due to something called an order paper question that another one of my colleagues put forward, where it came to light that there was close to $30 million, roughly, of contracts put in place with this consulting company, which is not an insignificant amount. It's a very large amount for a consulting company to get, specifically around the issue of service transformation strategy. Now, we have spent a long time, Chair, reviewing as this committee the very large backlog in Canada's immigration processing system. And we've heard from witnesses, experts over the last session, really hearing about the impact of the backlog on the Canadian economy, on our social and cultural fabric. And for me, when we see the amount of money that was spent to bring in an external consultant to, quote, transform service delivery, and then have service delivery get functionally worse, part of our jobs as members of Parliament is to ensure that we have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayer. We are the board of directors for the taxpayer. And to me, it seems that service delivery got worse in spite of the government paying tens of millions of dollars to a consulting company specifically for consulting that would ostensibly have made the backlog in the processing system better. So something went wrong here. And there, to me, on the surface, is a very big value for money issue that goes beyond just the taxpayer issue and actually affects the lives, right? These are people who are languishing overseas. These are people who are unable to reunite with family members. These are businesses who can't get workers. So the reason why it's so important that this committee looks at these documents is so that we are able to ascertain whether or not A, value for money was spent and made, B, whether or not the recommendations in this report or whatever deliverable this company purported to achieve actually would have made a material impact on the service delivery of immigration. I would argue at this point no, but I'm happy to be proven otherwise by this document, and see if there was recommendations put forward by this company. Where did they go? What happened to them? Like, this is a lot of money. This is an issue that is integral to the functioning, and everybody in this room who does not have a government appointment, our number one job, regardless of political stripe, is to hold the government to account on issues like this so that it doesn't happen again. We do have the responsibility and the authority to produce documents as, in fact, it's one of the most important functions of parliamentary committees. And we need to be looking at these contracts. We really do. The correspondence that my colleague has outlined in this motion is also integral to understanding how and why these contracts came about. The last thing I'll close with is this. This company, this company has some. I would hope that everybody in this room understands that this company had to pay a lot of money in settlements due to its role in the opioid crisis in the United States of America. That is unconscionable, and we also should be questioning whether or not it is right and just for our government to be giving taxpayer dollars to a company who has had a hand in activities like promoting the opioid crisis. I also understand that this company has also had other scandals abroad, including, I believe, that there's some issues around election interference allegations. If we as parliamentarians do not request documents like this and do not undertake to correct situations like this, nobody will, right? The check and balance for public service officials who are involved in procurement are us. It's the people in this room. They have to know that they can't just rubber stamp things and let tens of millions of dollars of contract go through with a company with questionable ethics and then not have a deliverable and service delivery get worse. We are the check and balance. The public service is not managing to profit and loss in this situation, but they are managing to our diligence. And that's why this is so important. So the amendment I'm making here allows the committee to get these documents, get this correspondence, undertake this diligence, and hopefully provide some recommendations to the government to ensure that there are better business practices and better value for money for tax dollars, and that there's also some accountability for ensuring that service gets better and not worse in some of the most critical components of our government. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Empel-Gardner. Mr. Empel-Gardner has moved an amendment to the motion moved by Mr. Redekop. We are on that amendment. I have a speaking list. Mr. Dhaliwal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With this new motion and with the new amendment, I don't want, I want to continue with Madam Kwan's suggestion about the minister because, I agree with her, and in fact, every other member on the Liberal side agree with her that these meetings are important. Afghanistan studies is very, very important as well because some of us work together on that committee that's not sitting anymore, and this is the committee where ministers should come. And in fact, I would like, Madam Chair, yourself and clerk to put some time into a thought process. So go to these ministers together and find out the dates that they are available. As Mr. Redekop said, that even if we have to make a little bit of a change in our schedule, he's very gracious, and I'm sure his members on that side will be, and on this side we will probably cooperate with that as well. So we get that important study out of the way. That is what, Madam Chair, I wanted to stress.
Thank you, Mr. Dhaliwal. We are on that amendment which has been moved to the motion moved by Mr. Redekop. We will now proceed to Mr. Brunel Dissep.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. En fait, il y a comme deux conversations, là, parce...
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are two conversations going on. Before Mr. Redekop tabled his motion, we were talking about our timetable and ministers who we wanted to see before the committee, and now we're debating an amendment proposed by the Conservatives. I agree with everything my colleague Michelle has said with regard to the importance of these documents. For us parliamentarians who want to know who we're really working for, taxpayers, our constituents, people who send 50% of their income to Ottawa, because that's the way it is in Quebec. Well, I noted that in her speech she said that if we are not asking for the documents, who will ask for them? Well, if we parliamentarians don't get those papers, who will? Well, at the Government Operations Committee, they've asked for those papers, and pretty much with the same motion as the one discussed here. So I find this is an important motion. However, if other MPs and other committees have already done this, well, I wouldn't want to overlap their work. I understand it's important for our committee as well to see these documents, but because the call has been made to get those papers elsewhere, well, we'll eventually see them. That said, if we're not happy with the results of the OGO motion, then we can retable the motion because we're not happy with how OGO reacted to the motion. At that point, we here can table this motion. So what I suggest is that we keep this motion in our back pocket. We adjourn the debate on the motion now, but keep the motion alive, if you will. Put it on the back burner so we can bring it back if need be. What we're hearing is that if we vote on this motion right now, it might be voted down. Why I want to keep this motion alive while keeping an eye on what's happening at the other committee. So they're already working on this motion at the Government Operations Committee. It's the same wording. So we'll just see what they're doing, how things evolve there. And if we're not happy with things that are going there, we can bring this motion back here and table it again here and redebate it here. So I suggest that we just suspend debate on the motion here. Can we come back to our conversation on Afghanistan and to our timetable because we hadn't finished that yet?
Dissep, just to be clear, just to make sure that translation is clear, what I am getting is that you are proposing to adjourn the debate.
Ajourner le
what you're
débat sur la
requesting?
motion des conservateurs.
Yes, on the Conservative motion, and I've already said this several times. We want to keep the motion alive, if you will. We need to vote on it, but let's wait to see what's happening at the other committee, which has already tabled this motion and is going to work on it. After that, can I come back to the timetable and the study on Afghanistan?
So Mr. Brunel Dissep has moved to adjourn the debate. That's a non-debatable motion, and now we will have to go into the vote. So, Madam Clerk, if you can please take the vote. We are voting on that Mr. Brunel Dissep has moved to adjourn the debate. Thank you.
Mr. Ali? Yes. Mr. Dhaliwal?
Yes.
Monsieur El Khoury?
Yes.
Madame Kayabaga?
Oui.
Madame Lalonde?
Wait.
Mr. Kimmich?
No.
Mr. McGuire?
No.
Mr. Redekop?
No.
Ms. Rempel-Garner?
No.
Monsieur Brunel Dissep? Ms. Kwan?
Yes.
Thank you. So it's 7 yeas and 4 nays. So the debate is now adjourned on the motion. We are back on committee business. Mr. Brunel Dissep.
Bon, pour revenir au calendrier.
Well, to come back to our timetable and when ministers could appear, very candidly, since we've had so many rejections of our invitations, and it's really important to have ministers come here on these topics, I suggest that if by Friday we have no confirmation that any minister will appear at the committee, and I'm coming back to what my colleague Tom was saying, well, in that case, we will compel them to appear. If we don't hear from anyone by Friday, and if they don't confirm they'll appear, well, we'll summon them. So we'll summon them. That's what I'm proposing. Maybe one of my colleagues wants to make an official motion to that effect. I think that would make sense. It would take less time because we've got a lot of work to do. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Kwan and then Ms. Lalonde. Ms. Kwan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just a quick comment on the issue. First, around the importance of the McKinsey contracts. There's no doubt that we need to get to the bottom of it. and the New Democrats absolutely support that. And that work is, of course, is underway at the OGO committee. And from what I understand, there's another committee, the Public Accounts, is also looking into this as well. And because, from what I understand, some $25 million of the contract are related to immigration. So we do have a vested interest to see what happened with those contracts. That said, because essentially the same documents have been requested at these other committees, we should wait for that material to appear. And because that ongoing work is being done at OGO and other committees, we should see what happens. And then if the answers are deficient or actions are deficient, no doubt we will come back to this committee. And so I thank my colleagues for moving it and putting this on the table. And I thank my colleague and also saying that we should not vote against this motion, but rather wait and see what the results are. So that said, on the schedule here today, I am frustrated, Madam Chair, with the lack of response or prioritization of key ministers on the Afghanistan file. And, you know, I don't know why it is that the ministers who's been invited prior to the holidays on 4 occasions has said no, that they can't come because they're too busy. And then in the new year, they were also extended to come, and they also said that they were too busy. So I am in agreement to say that we need to move this forward and to compel the ministers to come. And now the only minister I will say, and it is important to note, who's accepted our invitation is the Minister of Immigration. But because this is a government of a whole response, all the relevant ministers need to come as well. And we're only inviting 4 of them, by the way, not all the ministers, but only 4 of the cabinet that are most relevant to the issues at hand. So to that end, Madam Chair, I would like to move the following motion: that the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration invite the Minister of Foreign Affairs, National Defense, Justice, and Attorney General to appear before CIM for 2 hours with their officials, consistent with the Afghan motion passed on October 7th by CIM, October 7th, 2022 by CIM. And if the ministers do not accept the invitation by Friday, February the 3rd, 2023, CIM undertake to summon the ministers to appear before CIM based on the committee's schedule.
Thank you, Ms. Kwan. So Ms. Kwan has moved the motion. Just need to clarify something with the clerk. Just 2 minutes. Thank you, Ms. Kwan. Just to clarify in regards to the motion which has been moved by Ms. Kwan, I will read out from Chapter 20 of the House of Common Procedures and Practices, page 982. it reads as, there is no specific rule governing voluntary appearances by members of the House of Commons before parliamentary committees. They may appear before a committee if they wish and have been invited. If a member of the House refuses an invitation to appear before a standing committee and the committee decides that such an appearance is necessary, it may so report to the House, and it will be up to the House to decide what measures should be taken. So this is like from Chapter 20 on committees. So based on that, I will rule Ms. Kwan's motion as inadmissible. If I can request members to please speak through the chair. No direct conversations. So based on this, the part of the Chapter 20 which I have read, I will rule that motion as inadmissible. Ms. Kwan.
Thank you very much. Then I'll move a new motion, Madam Chair. I will move that the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration invite the Minister of Foreign Affairs, National Defense, and Justice and Attorney General to appear before SIM for 2 hours with their officials, consistent with the Afghan motion passed on October 7, 2022 by SIM, and that if the ministers do not accept the invitations by Friday, February 3, 2023, that SIM undertake to report the matter to the House report the matter to the House. And I'm sorry, I don't have the language that you read out in the section.
I will read it again. The last line says, and it will be up to the House to decide what measures should be taken. So, if a member of the House refuses an invitation to appear before a standing committee and the committee decides that such an appearance is necessary, it may so report to the House. And it will be up to the House to decide what measures should be taken.
Okay, so we will then just say report the matter to the House consistent with section...
This is Chapter 20, page 982. Okay. I think based on what the clerk is recommending is that you just say that report to the House.
All right, then we'll just report the matter to the House. And then we'll see what happens with the House and see whether or not the House deems it important enough for the ministers to appear before the committee and for the matters to be addressed.
We have a motion on the floor moved by Ms. Kwan. Mr. Dhaliwal?
I think this is reasonably doable, and I'm sure the ministers, along with the clerk and the chair of the committee, should be able to find that schedule work for them, because we work together. As Madam Chair, I earlier said on the Afghanistan committee, and I tell you, every minister that we asked for, every witness that we asked for were able to appear that. And if we had to make minor changes, and we did it at that time, and we are willing to do that, and we should make sure, instead of going through all these loops, going to the House, between you, clerk, and the minister should be able to figure this out, which dates work for them, and we as members will be willing to accommodate.
Thank you, Mr. Dhaliwal, Mr. Ali, and then Ms. Lalonde.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I just wanted to say committee sent just one date, and some minister they were not available. One is available, but that doesn't mean the minister they don't want to appear before the committee. So I think it's, I don't even think that we're going to go to that House that a minister will not show up. So I think if we give them an opportunity, minister would be willing to come before the committee, and then we won't need that that summons or sending those suggestions. To the House. So I think we should give them an opportunity for ministers.
Thank you, Mr. Ali, Ms. Lalonde, and then Mr. Brunel Desapp.
Et c'est justement ce qu'on fait avec cette motion, Madame.
That's exactly what we're doing with that motion, Madam Chair. Didn't she just say Alexis Brunel Desapp? No, after
Lalonde. Miss Lalonde. Miss Lalonde.
Merci, chers collègues, mais je serai très courte, moi aussi.
Thank you, colleagues, but I'll be brief. Madam Chair, I just want to clarify something to see if we can have a consensus here around the table. Are we saying that this motion should apply to the dates that were proposed previously, or will there be a certain margin for ministers to appear before the committee based on their own availability before the end of the session? I just want to make sure what the parameters are. No one here is underplaying the importance of the motion on Afghanistan and the fact that we need to hear from ministers, but we don't control their schedules. So I know that in the past it took time before getting confirmation. Even in January, at the beginning of January, we didn't know when this committee would be sitting. So I think it was just 2 weeks before the session started that we found out when we would be sitting. So, Madam Chair, I just want a clarification. Do we agree that what we're suggesting is open to the availability of ministers to make it more likely that they'll appear? I don't think it's reasonable to ask a minister or an MP, for instance, to appear on a specific day. So I'd like to find a consensus around the table that ministers will appear when it is suitable for them, when they can actually come here. We can all agree that it is important to hear from them, but I'm a little concerned that if we pinpoint a date for them to appear, well, we don't control their schedule. So can we just have a consensus and an agreement that we are open-minded with regard to when they will appear?
And, Mr. Brunel de Sep.
Là, c'est vraiment mon...
Now it's really my turn. Well, first I want to reassure my colleague and allay her concerns. In the motion tabled by Jenny, there are no specific dates. What we're saying that by Friday we want confirmation that they will appear. And my friend Mr. Ali, to him I say we are giving them this opportunity. Before compelling them to appear, we will give them a week. That's great. A whole week. Between Monday and Friday, they can come back to us with confirmation that they will appear without giving us a specific, and they can come back to us with the date of their choosing that they can appear. So I'd like to reassure my friends opposite that if that's the case, we are happy to support Jenny's motion, which is reasonable and which seeks to find a consensus around the table. Thank you.
Brunel de Sep. Now we have Mr. Kimmich and then Mr. Dhaliwal.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I was just going to add that, I support the motion, obviously, because it's basically the idea that I had is just to compel them in some manner to decide when will they appear, so it's not an optional thing to do. And it's a very reasonable motion. It doesn't tell them when they're supposed to appear. They're just supposed to inform us of the date that they're picking to appear before the committee. And then should they fail to do that, we're basically asking for the House to be made aware of it so that the House itself can act upon it. This has been done many times when witnesses either refuse to appear and you really want their testimony before the committee so it can be put onto the record, or when witnesses make it difficult to appear by canceling out, by saying, well, my schedule is very busy. Like, we're all very busy. We all have busy schedules. But accountability works. Ministers are accountable to Parliament. This committee was created by Parliament to hold ministers accountable. And for accountability flows down to us. We're not accountable to the ministers. That's not the way it's supposed to work. So it's based on what our schedules say when our meetings have been designated by the whip's offices and by the House, and the ministers should find the time in their schedules to make themselves available. I know the ministers are very busy. They know that parliamentary committees will be asking, and they've known since October that at some point in the future they will be asked to appear before this committee to explain themselves on Afghanistan and what happened there, and then the outcome for all of these refugees and displaced persons all over the world who are looking to come to Canada. So it's just part of that accountability and transparency work that we're trying to get done. And at the very minimum, this is a very reasonable motion. We're literally not immediately reporting to the House that they failed to reply and failed to satisfy this committee, that they've simply made it difficult to do our work. They're frustrating the work of this committee by making it difficult to schedule it with our calendars. I don't care about their calendars. I care about the calendar of this committee to make sure we can fulfill our work plan. And like I've said before, we only have 4 free meetings thus far, which will make it very difficult to ensure we can also look at all the spending plans of the government, both for the end of the past fiscal year and for the next fiscal year. So I think it's an infinitely reasonable motion. We're giving the ministers a last chance to give us a date when they'll appear with their officials.
Mr. Dhaliwal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, again, I just want to make sure that every member on the committee on the other side understands that members on this side fully support the study, fully support the idea that Ms. Kwan has to have the importance for this committee to study this important issue on Afghanistan. And in fact, as I said, that many of us worked together on the committee on Afghanistan, and we did not have a single issue, when it came to whether it was appearing of the ministers or were the witnesses. And Mr. Brunel de Sepp and Mr. Reddycop has, both said from 2 different parties that we are willing to accommodate. We just want to give them the dates, but not, as Mary France said, that we want to postpone it to till the end of the session. It should be in the near future, and they should be able to give us those dates. And we as members are also willing to work. And as this is not only important issue on Afghanistan to one party or one member, it is an important issue. It's a humanitarian issue, and it concerns, and I'm sure every single riding and every single member in this room and every single member in the parliament believes in the same cause. So I think we should put to end and let we work on this. And I'm sure, Madam Chair, you and Clerk will be able, along with the ministers, will be able to figure out the schedule by end of Friday. So appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Dhaliwal. And it's really an important issue. And I want to reiterate also, it's a very important issue for me. And I want to thank you for all the work which you did as the chair of the Special Committee on Afghanistan. I think it was 5 of us from this committee who were sitting on that committee, and we did some very important work. So it's an issue which is of very importance to me also, personally. Now we will proceed to Ms. Rempel Garner.
Thank you, Chair. I can't wrap my head around this notion that somehow the ministers are too busy to appear at a parliamentary committee after having months of notice. I mean, their entire existence is predicated on Parliament holding them to account for their spending, for their actions. It's actually their number one job to come to this committee. So I think Ms. Kwan's motion makes so much sense because when you think about the severity of the bungling on Canada's Afghan response, to have the Minister of Global Affairs or the Minister of Defense say, I'm sorry, I'm a little busy to be held to account, while there's, countless people who have been failed by our response to this. I really hope colleagues understand that, again, even though you might have a political stripe that you are attached to, our job here is to hold the government to account. We have to be parliamentarians first. And my colleagues who are part of the governing party, you guys, it is completely unacceptable for a minister to not show up to this committee and not make an effort to attend. In fact, I would argue that there are many Liberals in this room that could be cabinet ministers who would probably avail themselves of such an opportunity. But to hide from this committee, to not make just to not make themselves available, Yes, of course, Ms. Kwan's motion makes sense. We should be seeking remedy for that. We should be holding them to account for their recalcitrance and bad behavior. If not for us, on behalf of the people that we're trying to serve with immigration policy through Afghanistan. I just find this completely unconscionable that we have the Minister of Global Affairs, Melanie Joly, just completely reluctant to come to this committee. Who is the Minister of Defense? Oh, it's Anita Anand, right. What's to hide? If it's such a great response, come on over, let's talk about it. The reality is they need to be here, and there's nothing more important in this committee, and if they do not come, I believe we should summon them. Thank you.
Next is Ms. Kwan. I just want to let the members know that I wanted to discuss the travel plans also today. The committee has to, if we have to travel, we have to submit to the liaison by no later than February 8th. So if in case we don't come up to that discussion today, we will have to have like a subcommittee to have that discussion. So that will be, just want to lay it out. Ms. Kwan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the committee members' comments in support of the motion that I've moved. The intent here is to really put, I guess, light a fire under the ministers by way of response. The reality is this: they were invited prior to the holiday break on 4 occasions, and they did not come, except for the Minister of Immigration, who offered that he would come. And because of supplementary estimates, we had to change our schedule accordingly. And then in the new year, the clerk had just reported to us that 4 dates were offered to these ministers, and they did not take it up. So it's not like they haven't had a chance.
Like, it's not that 4 dates, 4 options were given to the ministers. Like, we selected 4 dates, and each minister was given 1 date. It's not that, like, every minister was given 4 options. And we only started, the clerk started to work with their offices once we had the schedule of the committee. Yes, we made 1 request in December. The second request was made in January, and only each minister was given 1 date. Just to clarify that.
Okay, and we're now, Madam Chair, expanding the number of dates that we're giving to them. In fact, our whole schedule is open. We'll accommodate them. But they need to confirm with us on a specific date of our schedule when they can show up by Friday. If they don't, we'll report this matter to the House. And we've got to get on with it. So, we can't just sort of keep lingering around as though the lives of the people who depend on the action of parliamentarians and the government don't matter. And I don't believe that's the case. As you indicated, Madam Chair, a number of us sat on the special committee on Afghanistan and worked really hard at that committee, heard witnesses on that committee. And the situation has not improved itself. In fact, if anything, the situation has gotten worse. So it's more urgent than ever that we actually get on with it. So I appreciate the committee member support. And so let's hope that we'll get some dates and get these ministers before us so that we can move forward with this file. Madam Chair, after this, I just want to flag for the committee by way of scheduling issues. I just want to flag this issue. The committee also passed a motion to invite the Minister of Immigration to come before the committee on the levels plan. And that is also important. I just don't want to forget it. And I noted that on the draft schedule that's been sent around, it does not show up anywhere. So we just need to make sure that we don't forget it.
Kwan, I have 2 more people on the speaking list, and then Mr. Reddycop and then Mr. Al-Khoury. Mr. Reddycop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to clarify with everybody. So the reason that Ms. Kwan had to put this forward is, I think, kind of a core issue of trust, because we've asked these ministers to apply to come here a couple of times, and they didn't. Now, what I would have expected is, what I think would have been reasonable is for the minister to say, I can't come that day, but I would suggest that I could come this day. That would, to me, be something that, I could accept that as an act of good faith. They literally can't come. I can believe that because they're saying they can come here. But what they've said instead is just, I can't come. And I think that has caused us to not trust them. And that's the whole reason why this motion is coming up. And so for the Minister of Defense, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Justice, that is the issue here, is that we aren't trusting the fact that they're going to come at all. And so that's why we need to We need to bring this forward, and we need to have some mechanism that we can use to try to compel them. Now, just one little thing I would like to amend this motion, very minor. At the very end, it says report to the House, and I'm thinking, why report to the House? And so I've come up with the words, so appropriate measures can be taken, just to give it a little bit more purpose on why we're reporting it to the House. We're not just reporting it to the House for everybody to hear it, but we actually want actions to be taken. So we're not telling the House what to do, but we're just saying so appropriate measures can be taken. I would like to move that amendment, and maybe that's a friendly amendment that we can just all agree to.
Thank you, Mr. Reddycop. So Mr. Reddycop has moved an amendment, and now we have an amendment on the floor. And the next on the speaking list is Mr. Al-Khoury.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, to my colleague, Ms. Kwan, through you, is there a written version of her motion? Because I believe it is in the interest of this committee for each member to receive a written copy. So can we get that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Al-Khoury. Ms. Kwan, if you can please send your motion to the clerk so that it can be distributed to the members. So we have an amendment on the floor which has been moved by Mr. Reddycop. Ms. Lalonde.
Yes, I would just like to, because I'm certainly looking forward to see the written motion, but the amendment, maybe if my colleague, through you, Madam Chair, could just clarify what he means, because, and I was trying to report to the House, and I still missed the other portion that he's asking, but what exactly does he mean by this, if he could clarify?
Thank you. Mr. Reddycop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the specific words are, report to the House, so appropriate measures can be taken. The reason for that is to just make it very clear to the House that we as a committee expect them to do something. We're not telling them what to do. They could figure that out themselves, but we're not just telling them this for their information. We actually would like them to do something.
Thank you, Mr. Reddycop. Mr. Al-Khoury.
Sorry, I don't think, Madam Chair, that we can tell the House what to do. We report to the House, and then up to the House to decide what kind of measure has to do. Thank you.
Ms. Kwan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. A written version of the motion is available in English only, to which we have sent to the clerk, and I apologize because this motion was unanticipated from the perspective of the schedule. I did not think that the answer coming back would be that none of all these ministers would not be available, which propelled us to sort of move forward. So if I could ask the clerk's office to ensure that the motion is in both languages provided to committee members, I would appreciate it. I do apologize for that. With respect to the amendment, I am good with either. I'm good with making it clear the intention. That was my original approach to it. Then I was told by the clerk that it's best to just leave it to say that it's reported to the House, and then implicit in that it would be understood. So I kind of respected that and accepted that. So I'm good with either way. I do thank Mr. Reddycop for offering the amendment to I think to indicate the seriousness of the situation and a hopeful action that will be undertaken by the minister so that we don't have to, in fact, go to this length. I would rather not have to do that. I would rather that they just show up.
Further speaking list. Ms. Lalonde.
Yes. Écoutez, en tant que fière francophone, je me dis...
Now, as a proud Francophone, I see this has not been translated and it was just written out, and we do appreciate the motion, but I don't understand the friendly amendment of my colleagues, so appropriate measures can be taken. I am wondering whether we can also have the French and English versions of that, please, before we vote.
Ms. Lalonde, thanks for raising that. The clerk has already sent for translation. I'm not sure whether we will receive it before 5:30 or not.
Point of
So,
order.
Ms. Rempel-Garner.
For the purposes of debate and voting per our standing orders, translation counts when an amendment or a motion is read, because we do have simultaneous translation. And I understand that it's preferable to have written, but part of the function of this committee, Chair, is to amend motions. That's why we debate, and I would say that there's no reason why we can't proceed. Thank you.
Chair?
Then Ms. Lalonde.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Madam Michelle Rempel-Garner has said, that the motion has come, as it go and amendments has come. So why don't we just read that motion, the complete motion, slowly, so the translation is done, and the members, who are French speaking, and they should be able to understand that clearly what they're voting on, and I think it's perfectly fine.
Oui, et j'aimerais quand même peut-être avoir.
Still, I would like to have the exact French version. And thank you to the people who will be translating it to read it out slowly. I still don't understand what Mr. Redekop is trying to say, and I'll read it out in English because I only have the English.
Can be taken. J'essaie de savoir qu'est-ce qu'il veut dire par ceci.
What exactly does he mean by that?
Thank you, Mr. Brunel de Sepp.
Je peux traduire tout de suite.
Well, I can translate. He's asking that appropriate measures be taken.
Excusez, j'essaie d'avoir la.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get clarification. What specific appropriate measures does he expect the committee to take? What is the content of these measures, and why include this in the motion?
Just to clarify, like what I read, it is like what we can do is we can report to the House, and then it is up to the House to decide. So as a committee, what maximum we can do is report to the House. That's what we can do, and then it is up to the House to take a decision. Like once we report to the House, we cannot do further on that. Ms. Kwan.
All right. I just want to test very quickly on the floor. Are we ready to vote on the motion, on the main motion?
Yeah, we are on the main motion.
On the amendment and then the main motion?
I was.
Please, one conversation at a time. If you want, I can suspend. We are coming to the end of the meeting. So right now, procedurally, we have the amendment which has been moved by Mr. Redekop. So if it is not taken as a friendly amendment, then we will have to vote on the amendment, and then we will go back to the main motion. So right now, we have an amendment which has been moved by Mr. Redekop on the floor. That's where we are.
All right. So Madam Chair, I'm just trying to get a sense here and to test the floor. If we're ready to vote on the motion, if we're ready to vote on the motion, I can dispense.
The amendment which has been
I understand that. On the amendment and the motion, if we're ready to vote, I think we can stop the discussion and move forward. But if we're going to keep on talking about this, then other actions may need to be taken. So I just want to test the floor. Perhaps we can suspend for 1 minute. Sure. And just, I like to talk to my Liberal colleagues to see where they're at.
Okay. So Ms. Kwan, if you can please read the motion. I think that's what the members are looking for. If you can slowly read the motion so that everyone is clear, and then once you read the motion, we will have Mr. Redekop read the amendment, and then we can proceed further. Ms. Kwan.
Okay, I move that the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. I move that the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration invite the Minister of Foreign Affairs, National Defense, and Justice and Attorney General to appear before CIM for 2 hours with their officials, consistent with the Afghan motion passed on October 7th, 2022 by SIM, and that if the ministers do not accept the invitation by Friday, February 3rd, 2023, that the matter be reported to the House.
Thank you. So that's, I hope all the members are clear about the motion. Mr. Reddycop has moved an amendment. Mr. Reddycop, if you can please read the amendment, and then we can go from there.
So all of that plus, so appropriate measures can be taken.
So Mr. Reddycop has moved an amendment that so that appropriate measures can be taken. If are members ready to vote, or you want meeting to be suspended?
Madam Chair, can you suspend the meeting for a few minutes so that the members can talk among themselves?
We don't have unanimous consent to suspend the meeting.
No?
Madam Chair?
1 second, just 1 second to be,
So then, Madam Chair.
Oh, Jenny, for sure.
Please talk to through the chair, if I can have everyone's attention. Members want to proceed on the vote on the amendment, or like the meeting needs to be suspended. Vote? Okay. So we will vote on the amendment first. Madam Clerk, if you can please take the vote.
Voting on the amendment by Mr. Redekop. Mr. Ali?
Yes.
I do. No, this is an amendment.
Sure.
This vote is for amendment, right? Not for actual.
The amendment.
No.
It's okay.
So can you clarify, Madam Chair, please? Because I understand there would be two votes.
Yes, right now, first
One
vote is on the amendment.
So, can I have everyone's attention, please? As you read from the book,
time.
committee has no jurisdiction to take any measures. So
He can
I'm
report to the
voting based upon what you have
Point
read.
of order.
Because as a committee, yeah. So no,
in a
I
vote.
said no.
We are voting on the amendment. So, Madam Clerk
said
will
no.
take the
I said
vote
no.
without clarification. We need to proceed with the vote. Yes, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Ali?
No.
Mr. Dhaliwal?
Yes.
Mr. El Khoury?
Yes.
Ms. Kayabaga?
Oui.
Madame Lalonde?
Oui.
Mr. Kimich?
Yes.
Mr. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Redekop?
Yes.
Ms. Garner? Rempel
Yes.
Garner? Yes, Rempel Garner. Monsieur Brunel-Lusat?
Oui.
Ms. Kwan?
Yes.
Ten yeas, one nay.
So it is 10 yeas, 1 nay. The amendment is adopted. So now we will vote on the motion as amended.
Voting on the motion of Madame Kwan as amended. Mr. Ali? Yes. Mr. Dhaliwal?
Yes.
Mr. El Khoury?
Yes.
Ms. Kayabaga?
Oui.
Madame Lalonde?
Oui.
Mr. Kimich?
Yes.
Mr. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Redekop?
Yes.
Ms. Rempel Garner?
Yes.
Monsieur Brunel-Lusat?
Oui.
Ms. Kwan?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion as amended is adopted. Okay, just like if I can have everyone's attention, please. Please, like, talk through the chair. Don't have side conversations. I have one thing before we adjourn this meeting in regards to the proposal for the visit for spring 2023. So does the committee wish to propose site visits for spring 2023? That will be for the period between April to June. Yes, Mr. Like travel of the committee. It's a travel of the committee. Sorry, like if I travel of the committee outside Canada. What
Yeah. I was going to say, like, all actions have consequences, and everybody should talk to the Liberal House Leader and Liberal Whip, but I'm saying no, the committee should not travel. This committee has tried twice before, 3 times before to travel, and as far as I know, it's been refused every single time. So why are we asking again? Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Kimmich. Just to make it clear to the members, twice we were approved by the liaison committee, but the agreement when it came to the agreement between the whips in regards to the motion in the House, we were approved by the liaison committee. But the last time, the Conservative whips did not agree with the travel. Only the travel of the 3 committees was approved, and our committee was not part of that. So now we have again been asked if the committee would like to travel. If we have to travel, we have to submit our proposal to the liaison committee by February 8th. Yes, Ms. Kwan, and then Mr. Brunel to say.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. You know, the reality is that we put a whole lot of work into this. The clerk and the analyst did a whole lot of work onto this, and it went through a round twice. And even though it went through liaison, it ultimately got rejected because parties have a veto power to reject this. And clearly, one party here does not want this to happen. So I'm not willing to go through more work to make a proposal where it's just ultimately going to be rejected. Lesson learned, you know, those are the kinds of things that I live by. And so I'm not willing to go through this again. And the other thing I should point out, aside from the work that the clerk and the analysts have put into this, we also wasted time at our committee because a schedule was premised on this trip. And we wasted a bunch of meetings, to which I'm super grumpy about. And when you lose time, you can't get them back. So I'm not willing to do it again because one party has that veto power. And they exercise that veto power accordingly. So no, I'm not willing to submit any more requests.
The consensus to submit a travel request for February 8th. I will thank you to all the members. I will work with the clerk to work on the calendar for this committee. And in regards to that, Ms. Lalonde.
J'aimerais juste en nos
On our behalf, I would like to thank the clerk and the analysts who produced documents for us yet again. There are 2 reports. There's more stuff coming down the pipe. A lot of delays in the last session. We all know what they are. But thank you so much to all of you from the bottom of our hearts for the fantastic work you've done. I've received even things in my inbox that I asked you to do just in case. So on behalf of all of us here, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Yes, the analyst and the clerk do an amazing job. And thank you for all the work which you do. Just before we end this meeting, I want to let everyone know that the draft for the Roxham Road will be sent to you on Monday, February 6th. So we will then, once you have it, we will try to schedule for the consideration of the draft report sometimes like second week of February. We will have to go and work on the calendar. And we also have on our agenda the study on the S245. The witnesses for S245 are due for March 10th, and amendments are due on March 31st at noon. Clause by clause can be completed on April 17th, and we will begin draft report consideration of the Afghanistan report after that. Okay, with that, the meeting is adjourned.